What's going on, everybody, and welcome to another Angle of Pursuit podcast, your fantasy football, sports betting, and NASCAR home here at fakepigskin.com. I'm your host, Kyle Robert. Follow me on Twitter at NotoriousKRO. With me to break down our fantasy football playoff preview show, it's Brian Twining. Brian, what's up?
What's going on, Kyle? I've said this on Twitter before, and I know I'm not the only one in the fantasy football universe that feels like this, but I had the dreaded bye week in my two home leagues, and both of my teams just absolutely crushed it this week. So I know what's coming next week.
Yep.
I'll be knocked out in my first game, so I'm not really too excited about this upcoming week, to say the least.
Imagine your team going off and being upset because you know the bad is coming next week. Yeah, so normally we do a waiver wire here, but we know if you're in the playoffs, you probably don't need to run to the waiver wire too much. Maybe we are going to mention a couple names that are worth adding if you're scrambling. But we wanted to use this as an opportunity to look at quarterbacks you could be adding to play over the next couple of weeks once great schedules. Want to give you some defenses to target. Wanted to give you some take a look at week 17. I know not everybody plays week 17. There's a lot of people that, say lots of things about it, but there are some leagues that go into week 17 and there's some stuff going on there. So we wanted to give you some names that you could play if you have to deal with some stuff, and B, just the things to think about so you get ready, because it's easy right now to not really worry about that, and obviously you don't want to plan too far ahead because knowing exactly even if you're going to make it to the next round is a big challenge. But being ready and having all that stuff kind of set up, especially because you're probably holding on to somebody that you aren't going to play the next 3 weeks, and even if an injury happens, probably aren't going to cut your roster. So drop them now, add the defenses, add the kickers, figure all that stuff out, because it's going to save you so many headaches down the stretch, and it's going to put you one step ahead of the rest of your league. So, Brian, without further ado, let's talk some week 15 ads, players that you should be adding this week. And I'll start Jeff Wilson Jr. He's clearly the 1B to Raheem Mostert, who got banged up in this game. Not Tevin Coleman, who's running punt coverage, not Jerick McKinnon. It's Jeff Wilson Jr.'s world. Now, this Niners offense hasn't been great, so I'm not super duper optimistic, but for a running back that should see a sizable amount of touches, especially if the Niners go, you know what? Debo got hurt. We're still getting banged up. Fred Warner had a concussion and a stinger. Yep. This team is trending in the wrong direction from an injury standpoint. Obviously been doing that most of the season anyways, but they may go, let's rest Raheem. Let's load up Jeff Wilson. Let's give him 20 touches. And with their schedule setting up the next couple weeks, there could be volume and opportunity and production there.
Yeah, he was a guy that I was touting, at the end of this last week. If we were watching the Sunday show, I was talking about adding this guy, knowing that San Francisco is going to want to pound the rock. And he was the one that saw the touchdown this week against Washington. And now they go into a game, like you said, with a lot of people banged up. Even Raheem Mostert got banged up against Washington. And now the 49ers get to face the most appetizing run defense in the NFL, which is the Dallas Cowboys, who can't stop anybody. So you're looking at a guaranteed double-digit carry game for Jeff Wilson, and a guy that they've been utilizing in the passing game more of late. So he's one of those guys that you get at the end of the year that could be a potential league winner.
Yep. Totally makes sense. Another guy that we talked about on Sunday morning, saying you should add, is Lynn Bowden of the Miami Dolphins. He's a running back / wide receiver / former quarterback / rookie
utility man.
Yeah, he's a super utility player. But there's some interesting notes. Ryan McDowell tweeted that Lynn led the Dolphins in targets, catches, and receiving yards yesterday. Catching 19. He's caught 19 of his 23 targets this year. JJ Zacharyson, the late round quarterback, also added Miami Dolphins slot snaps per PFF over the last 2 weeks. Devontae Parker had 20, Gesicki had 32, and Lynn Bowden has 54. This dude is on the field, he's seeing the ball, and he's being productive with that volume. So if you need a wide receiver over the next couple weeks, I think Bowden could make a ton of sense, especially for a player that's basically universally unowned.
Yeah, I think he's one of those great ads right now, even for people who don't really need him, because he holds double position eligibility in Yahoo right now as having wide receiver and running back eligibility. And with their inabilities to kind of get the ground game going this last week, with everyone hurt, DeAndre Washington kind of falling flat on his face. I apologize about that. And with both Devontae Parker and Jakeem Grant both getting banged up in this past game against the Kansas City Chiefs, Lynn Bowden showed out well. He showed that he could be the lead guy here for the Dolphins. And if we're looking ahead here in championship week 16, Miami gets to play the Las Vegas Raiders, who they are horrible on defense in all facets. So you're looking at a guy that his role has been expanding over the second half of the year, and they're only going to want to utilize him more going forward with Tua. So he's a great ad looking ahead to week 16, week 17.
Yeah. Another name we've kind of just been banging the table, but Tony Pollard's worth your time. If he gets a full complement of work, he's going to be awesome. What about the Bengals guys? Gio Bernard apparently fumbled, and that was like his first time in, I don't know, 500 touches or something insane. And that was the reason they needed to bench him for the rest of the game. So it was a compliment of Travion Williams and Samaje Perine. Are either like Travion Williams look good? He's a guy that I like coming out of, I believe, Texas A&M. Could make some sense. Like, obviously this team is trending in the wrong direction. They have no desire to play their vets. So is he somebody that's worth, if you have a roster spot, just throwing him in there and seeing if something pops over the next couple of weeks and maybe you play them down the stretch?
Yeah, I think for a guy, if you're confident you're going to win your week 15 matchup and you got your championship game week 16, I think he's a great ad, because they'll be going up against Houston, who, as far as run defenses go, it's them and the Cowboys battling to see who is worse. So that's a fantastic matchup looking ahead there. And if Cincinnati, they want to, get their vets out of there, you're looking at a guy who could be seeing 20 touches in a game against the worst run defense in the NFL. So yeah, I would be looking at Williams more so than Perine for sure.
Let's talk some quarterback options. I got 3 names, Brian. I think you have 3 names as well, or 2?
I got 4.
Oh, we got 4.
They'll be quick.
We're going to give you some names. We're going to give you some players to target for your fantasy playoffs if you're scrambling. My favorite option, who's also happens to be highly rostered, is Jared Goff. He has a home game versus the Jets this week, and then he's at Seattle the next 2 weeks. That playoff matchup is chef's kiss, like beautiful. And with a healthy complement of options, should be amazing. If you want to dive a little deeper, Baker Mayfield, I know it's gross. Brian's going to hate it. I think he's going to look awful tonight. At the Giants, at the Jets, 41%. I think he could be available in more leagues after tonight if it goes as according to schedule. Brian, why don't you hit me with a couple names you're considering?
All right. So for me, the number one ad, I think the number one ad of the week right now is Jalen Hurts, regardless of what your team needs are. I mean, what can you say bad about this guy, minus that late fumble against New Orleans? But they just went up against the number one rushing defense in the NFL, who hadn't allowed a 100-yard rusher in over 50 games. And he and Miles Sanders both eclipsed that mark. And he also threw for $167 and a touchdown to Alshon Jeffrey in his first start ever in the NFL. And he's going to get Arizona, Dallas, and Washington for his final 3 games. Like, you're looking at, like Kyle said, like, we're kind of, unfortunately, we're upset that Kyle didn't add that to his preseason list.
Yeah, I had my bold calls. It's probably mentioned it on there, but I didn't make it an official play because I said that's too crazy. Why would that happen? And here we are talking about Jalen Hurts winning people fantasy championships. I like him quite a bit as well. And actually, we told everyone to pick him up last couple of weeks. He said, go pick him up, stash him, even if you don't want to play him against New Orleans, because it was a bad matchup going in. But he played great. He runs the ball. He's not, if you're in a league where you need passing yards and you get bonuses for big passing yards and the rushing upside doesn't really help you as much, then I could see going other ways. But I think most leagues, the rushing yards is going to be great for you. The touchdown upside is there. And Alshon Jeffrey scoring a touchdown brought me way back to like 2011. It was amazing.
And the woes for Carson Wentz continue as backup Eagles quarterbacks seem to be better than he is. And then another guy that I'm looking at is Tua Tagovailoa. If you're looking at a guy to maybe play in a Week 16 matchup, the Miami Dolphins, like I said about Lynn Bowden, I mean, maybe you add both of them and you stack these guys. They're getting the Raiders in Week 16. I mean, if they made Phillip Rivers look like a god this past Sunday. So Tua is getting better. Guys should be healthy that week. I think Tua makes a great ad for Week 16 championships.
If you want to get real bold, old Mitchell Trubisky at Minnesota, at Jacksonville, only rostered in 11% of leagues. The thing I will say about old Mitchell is if everyone jumps on the bandwagon, abandon ship, and if everyone's saying he's going to stink and don't play him, that's when you fire him up because he is great like he was last week. Darnell Mooney, Allen Robinson had a monster game. Jimmy Graham was the tight end because they hate us, so that was fun. But all good names that you should be adding, and I'll throw all these in the comments so you can see in the show bio, so you can go back and look at the names that we suggested. But I think all these names, especially with that schedule, like I saw what Jacksonville was doing yesterday. That team is trending in the wrong direction. Now, let me ask you, Gardner Minshew back under center. Is he somebody that becomes a little more appealing, or are you feeling like Colin Johnson basically retired until the fourth quarter? Minshew made that offense look a little bit better, but it was against Tennessee, and they were up by a lot at that time. So I'm a little more optimistic about that offense, but it's very weird. I mean, I'm actually surprised it took Mike Glennon this long to completely fall apart, but here we are.
That's kind of the same way I was feeling.
But yeah,
I'm not looking at Minshew as an option at all. I mean, their next three games are Baltimore, Chicago, and Indianapolis. All three teams that should absolutely romp them. Yep. I know he'll probably be passing a ton, but who's to say he's not in the same situation as Glennon? He sucks for the first half and he gets pulled, so I'm not willing to take that risk.
Yep, good for DJ Chark, good for pass catchers, but I don't want to take that risk either. Any other? Okay, so let's talk defensive streamers because you said you had 6 names. So break down the weeks we are using these teams, all that good stuff.
All right, so my number one defensive ad this week that's lesser owned, they're right around the 50% mark right now, is Tampa Bay. They're going to get Atlanta twice. They get Atlanta this week, and then they get Atlanta in Week 17 for those of you that play in Week 17 championships. And then they play Detroit in Week 16. We don't know what the status of Matthew Stafford is going into this next week, but even if he's healthy, maybe he gets hurt bad enough to where he's not playing Week 16. And even if he is and they get Kenny Galladay back, that's not going to matter because Tampa Bay creates so many problems for opposing offenses. The turnovers are what you want to create those big points from the defense, and that's where Tampa's going to help you. Another team, Philadelphia. That defense, they lead the NFL they're second in the NFL in sacks. That defensive line is not somebody to be messed with. They were able to stifle New Orleans, who, yes, they're not the same passing team with Taysom Hill, but they couldn't really do anything for the first 3 quarters. They get Arizona, Dallas, and Washington. Arizona, they've shown some deficiencies on offense. They get Dallas, who, if you get pressure on Andy Dalton, you're looking at interceptions, and then you get Washington. Who the hell's playing quarterback for them? My third one is going to be the Tennessee Titans. They look great this last week against Jacksonville. They get Detroit this week. If you're looking for a streamer Week 15, it might be the Matthew Stafford list Detroit Lions. Go with Tennessee.
Chase Daniel's probably going to play. That would be my assumption. Tennessee is kind of frustrating because they will give up yards, and as we saw with Baker, they can be susceptible to a bad game, but they're also a team that is very gets a lot of big plays, makes interceptions at key times, gets the right sack of the fumble, can cause turnovers. So they have tremendous upside. They have downside that isn't great, but they're super opportunistic. And if you're basically, especially if you're in a league where you don't really get punished for yards, but get big points for turnovers, they're a perfect option.
Yeah, and then the last couple are going to be Miami. I know they're higher owned; they're right around the 60% mark right now, but they're going to get New England, so that's going to be a low scoring game with the opportunity for plenty of sacks, lots of interceptions. Miami's been intercepting the ball like crazy right now, and then again they get Las Vegas, who can be they can put up yards, but you can also force them into a lot of mistakes. The Cleveland Browns, they're going to get the Giants and the Jets the next 2 weeks. I mean, what better matchup than the Jets in week 16 if you're in those championship games? And then the Patriots, they get the Jets in week 17. So if you're in that week 17 championship, add the Patriots now and just wait for week 17.
And it sounds like Daniel Jones is going to gut it out, whatever that means. So I think that's a great sign for the defense as well.
Yeah, because he's not the same guy when he's not able to, run around and create yards with his legs. Daniel Jones is not good when he's stuck in the pocket.
Yep. I'm just trying to pull up something. So Brian will send me that list. I'll add it to the to the rundown below the video. So if you want to take a look at all the names that we're discussing, make sure you check that out. What the hell is going on? All right, here we go. On the right path. I was going to talk about the Niners as a potential, especially this week at the Cowboys. I kind of like it. But that team is getting banged up on that side of the ball. And if Fred Warner misses this game and they're missing some pieces, and the offense is struggling, that means defense on the field more. It's probably one to avoid. So let's forget about that. Let's talk some week 17 shenanigans, Brian. Let's talk Chiefs. If you play week 17, there's a chance, and a probably good chance. And as somebody who is currently riding Patrick Mahomes, Tyreek Hill, and Travis Kelce to a fantasy championship, I am not excited about the idea of the Chiefs saying, we got the number 1 seed locked up and we're not going to play our guys, and sitting all their studs in week 17. So that is something you'll want to keep an eye on. There are 2 other teams that we have penciled down. The Green Bay Packers, they could have it all signed, sealed, and delivered, and be sitting their guys. So that means no Rodgers, no Aaron Jones, no Devontae Adams. Maybe it's a Jordan Love, Jamal Williams thing. If you're an Aaron Jones owner, adding Jamal Williams and or AJ Dillon might be the move.
I was just going to say, I think what Jamal Williams brings to that team is so much more important than what AJ Dillon is to their chances to win a Super Bowl. So I think you would definitely see AJ Dillon fulfill that role as the lead guy, possibly the every down guy in a week 17 game. So I think he's a great add.
Yeah, it could be a Jordan Love, AJ Dillon. Let's see what these young guys have, which is wild. Like the Packers took their early round picks and took their first round pick, took a backup quarterback. Their second round pick took AJ Dillon, so he's like their 4th string running back at this point. And now this team's about to be the number 1 seed in the NFC. So, I don't know what these coaches are doing. And then potentially Buffalo as a team that could be sitting players in week 17. We'll have to kind of see how it all shakes out. Keep an eye on Pittsburgh, keep an eye on Buffalo, Kansas City, like all these teams jockeying for position. If they end up in spots where a win or a loss does absolutely nothing for them and won't move them up, won't drop them down, they could be sitting people. So keep an eye on all these teams. Maybe some other teams become more apparent over the next week or 2. We'll try and update you if we get more information. Brian, if we're playing week 17, if we're sitting Mahomes, I have one name for you. It's really gross, but his name is Drew Lock, and he gets the Oakland Raider or the Las Vegas Raiders in Denver. KJ Hamler is coming on. Jerry Jeudy looks great. Tim Patrick, Noah Fant. Noah Fant, by the way, like they got touchdowns to Fumagalli and Alberto, and all these guys are doing all these things, and Noah Fant was supposed to have the game and didn't have the game. So I know Drew Lock is scary, especially for a fantasy championship, but you know what? If you need a quarterback in week 17, I mean, I'm not going Nick Mullins, even as tempting as that is, at home versus Seattle. I know you have a name for me. Who are you looking at as a potential week 17 starter?
I'm going to go to the old fart and Phillip Rivers down there in Indianapolis. I mean, this guy has been quietly putting up like fantasy MVPs type numbers for people, for a guy that it's only rostered in 41% of leagues here. He's had 16 or more points in 6 of his last 7 games. He has 18 or more in 5 of his last 6, and he's got 20 plus in 4 of his last 7. Dude is on a roll right now. They get Jacksonville in week 17. If they're still in a spot where they need a victory in order to clinch a playoff spot, you're looking at a guy who is going to have multiple touchdowns against this horrible Jaguars defense. So I love Phillip Rivers as a potential league-winning guy for week 17 leagues.
So I had 3 quarterbacks before the season. Did it go amazingly? No. But we talked about 2 of them. Phillip Rivers, week 17 winner, championship winner. We talked about Jared Goff, and we talked about Big Ben. Like, were they the fantasy number 1 quarterback? No, but they were all between like 14 and 18 as maybe 20 something as quarterbacks you could draft, and they've all been super good, especially as of late. So props to me. I won't try and hurt myself patting myself on the back, but you win some, you lose some, and you have some crappy calls and some good calls, but it is nice when some of the things work out. Brian Twining, that was a lot of good info. If you have names that you're concerned about in week 17, if you have positions you're looking to stream at, you don't want to, I know it's scary to think about now, but planning for the playoffs now is going to get you set to win. So write these names down. Like I said, I'll put them in the show notes so you can go back and look through them. For Brian Twining, I'm Kyle Robert. Good luck in your playoffs. Go add these players now before they become before they disappear off the waiver wire, and then you're scrambling for a lot worse of potential.
So you're starting Sam Darnold.
Yeah, exactly. And we'll try and rank them by order of preference so you can go through them and figure out who to add. But for Brian Twining, I'm Kyle Robert, and we'll talk to y'all next time.